In this video, we will be discussing the first type of compound inequality, an or union inequality. There's two types. There's and or. We'll talk about and tomorrow. Today, we're just going to focus on the first type, which is an or. So compound inequalities. So basically what a compound inequality is it's two inequalities that are joined together. So a compound inequality means two inequalities that are joined together. So as I mentioned, there's two types of compound inequalities, but we're just going to discuss the first one today, which we're going to call or. So the solution to this type only has to satisfy one of the two parts. So for example, x is less than 2 or x is greater than or equal to 5. It just has to either fit with the first inequality or with the second inequality. So to graph this on a number line, we're going to graph both inequalities on the same number line. So we would have an open circle on positive 2, and then since it's less than, that's going to be shaded to the left. And then a closed circle on positive 5, since that's greater than, it would be shaded to the right with arrows. And then to do the interval notation, we always go from left to right on a number line. So if I look at the first inequality, it's going from negative infinity to positive 2 with parentheses. Then we put a U in the middle, and that U in the middle stands for union. Union means like joining together. So we have negative infinity to positive 2, and then we have from positive 5 to positive infinity. And there's a bracket around the positive 5 since that's a closed dot. So basically it's just interval notation, joining two intervals together with that U in the middle. So let's just practice graphing and writing the interval notation with these first two examples. So on a number line, just make sure you think about logically which number would come first on a number line. We always go smallest to largest. So for this example, negative 5 would have to come first and then positive 3. Negative 5 would have an open circle shaded to the left because it's less than negative 5. Positive 3 would have a closed circle since it has the equal bar and it's greater than, so it would be shaded to the right. So the interval notation from left to right would be from negative infinity to negative 5 with parentheses. Then we put the U, which stands for union or join together. Then we'd have a bracket, positive 3 to positive infinity. Okay, let's try one more. So on this number line, 0 would come first and then positive 4. 0 has an open circle and it's less than, so it's shaded to the left forever. For positive 4, this one would have a closed circle since it has that equal bar and it's greater than, so shaded to the right forever. So the interval notation from left to right would be negative infinity to 0 with parentheses, then a U, bracket, positive 4 to positive infinity. Now, some of the questions in the homework, you're going to have to solve the inequalities first and then graph and then write the interval notation. So these last four examples, we're going to solve first, then graph, then write the interval notation. So in example 5, you're just going to treat these as two separate inequalities. So just solve them as separately. So for the first one, to solve for b, you're just going to divide by 3. You get b is greater than 5. Or for the second one, you're just going to divide by 2. B is less than negative 2. So now that it's solved, now we're ready to graph it. So on a number line, negative 2 would come first and then positive 5. They're both going to have open circles. The negative 2 is less than, so that's shaded to the left forever. The positive 5 is greater than, so that's shaded to the right forever. So the interval notation from left to right would be negative infinity to negative 2 with a parenthesis, then U, parenthesis, positive 5 to positive infinity. There's no brackets because we don't have any closed dots. Okay, let's jump to number 6. Let's solve these two inequalities. So in number 6, for the first inequality, you're going to subtract 7. And you get 2a is greater than or equal to 2. Then divide by 2. So you get A is greater than or equal to 1. For the second inequality, you're going to divide by -4. And remember that when we're dividing by a negative, we have to flip the sign. So don't forget to flip the sign for this one. So it'd be A is less than or equal to -2. Now, once it's solved, we're ready to graph. So on a number line, -2 would come first and then +1. They're both going to be closed circles since they have those equal bars. -2 is less than, so shade to the left. +1 is greater than, so shade to the right. The interval notation would be from -infinity to -2 with a bracket since it's a closed circle. And then the U bracket +1 to +infinity. Okay, 2 more examples for us to try. So if we look at example 7, when we solve the first inequality, again, we're going to divide by -4. And when we divide by a negative, just don't forget, this is another one where you're going to need to flip the sign. So it becomes D is less than -2. For the second inequality, you're going to distribute the 3. So you get 3D plus 9 is greater than 12. Subtract the 9, you get 3D is greater than 3. Then divide by 3. So my answer would be D is less than -2 or D is greater than 1. When I go to graph this on a number line, -2 comes first, then +1. They're both going to be open circles. And then for the -2, it's less than, so shade to the left. For +1, it's greater than, so we shade to the right. The interval notation from left to right would be -infinity, -2 with a parentheses, then put the U, parenthesis, +1 to +infinity. All right, last question, example 8. So in example 8, again, we're going to solve these separately. So for the first one, we're going to distribute the 2. So I get 6 minus 4a plus 6a is greater than or equal to 10. Combine like terms, so I get 6 plus 2a is greater than or equal to 10. Subtract the 6, I get 2a is greater than or equal to 4, and then divide by 2. So a is greater than or equal to 2. For the second inequality, we're going to divide by -3. So again, don't forget, you're going to flip the sign here since we're dividing by a negative. So it would be a is less than or equal to -2. So now on our number line, -2 would come first, then +2. They're both going to have closed circles. -2 is less than, so shade to the left. +2 is greater than, shade to the right. So our interval notation would be -infinity, -2 with a bracket since it's a closed circle. And then a U, +2 with a bracket since it's a closed circle to +infinity. So a lot of this is just combining things you've already learned, but instead of only having one inequality on our graph, we have 2. Feel free to ask your teacher if you have any additional questions, but hopefully you're feeling more comfortable with how to complete compound or inequalities.